What is up, you guys? This is D-Man HD and I am back, and today we return to the Tier Maker website, and today we are ranking the NFL teams. Now, I'm going to do two tier lists with this one, but it's going to be two separate videos. I'm going to do the fans of this team, but this video is going to be ranking the team based off their roster. And yeah, let's just get right into it. I hope you guys are liking the tier maker videos. We are just trying to get to Madden 21. That way we can go hard into Madden 21. Pause. I know y'all want to catch that. It's a pause moment, so it don't count. But I really want to grind on Madden 21, but we cannot. And once again, pause. But anyway, the Titans. Titans are such a hard team to grade. They are the most average team ever. Like, they are one of the most average teams ever. Like, they play 9-7, 8-8 every single year. They have a B roster. Miami, C. Miami's getting there. They still have a lot to do. This is not going to be the year Miami surprised people. It's going to be next year where they still have a lot of cap. Miami's roster is still missing a lot. They don't have a single offensive line member that is worth anything. They have one good wide receiver in Devontae Parker. Their running backs room is questionable. Like, you hope Tua can stay healthy. You got two good corners. I'm not really sold on Miami yet. Cleveland's an A-tier roster. Cleveland is set to succeed, but they can't get out of their own way. Like, they have Odell Beckham, Baker Mayfield, Nick Chubb, Jarvis Landry, Austin Hooper, David Njoku. They have so much talent on offense alone, and they can't do anything. They can't get out of their own way. Cleveland has an A roster on paper, but they cannot get out of their own way. Jacksonville, D. Your best player right now is probably Leonard Fournette or Yannick Ngakoue, and both want to leave. That's all you have to say. Like, when your two best players want to leave, it's not good. Detroit's C. Like, Detroit has Stafford, Galladay, but, like, Kerryon Johnson can't stay healthy. Like, and if you draft him in fantasy expecting a big year, you're always going to be disappointed. TJ Hawkinson right now is looking like a bust since he couldn't really play last year. He played a few games, got hurt. So, I'm not sold on Hawkinson yet, but Lions they're not bad. They don't have the worst roster, but they don't have a great roster. They also just lost Darius Slay and replaced him with Desmond Trufant. You're not going to succeed like that. But if you want to say they replaced him with Jeff Okudah, then that's fine. But you still have a lot of holes on that defense. Minnesota, even with losing Stephon Diggs, is still an A-tier roster. They have so many great players. They have Danielle Hunter. They have Harrison Smith. They have so much talent. They have Anthony Barr, Michael Kendricks, Kirk Cousins, Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, Kyle Rudolph. They have a lot of talent, and they're always very competitive. Minnesota's an A-tier roster. Tampa Bay. Their offensive line's a little weak, but it's getting better. Defensive front seven is phenomenal. But I don't know about that secondary. That's their biggest issue. S tier is like where you have like very little holes. I want to say Tampa Bay is a B tier roster. They are really good in the front seven. They have a really, really strong offense, but their secondary, and like I think like A tier is like one player away from being like dominant, like S tier type. S tier is like you have a complete roster from top to bottom. B tier is like you have like one like weakness in your group. And like for me, the Bucs secondary is kind of weak, but that's just my opinion. San Francisco, that's an S tier roster. They just went to the Super Bowl. They didn't really lose anyone. The only person they lost was DeForest Buckner via a trade. I think this team is still as good. They literally don't have any holes in their team. They have 3 running backs on the roster, even though Raheem Mostert wants to get traded, but he's still very valuable. I think San Francisco is still one of the best rosters in the league. Falcons. You're C tier. Your secondary is not good. Your defense isn't really good. You're C tier. Your offense is amazing. Your defense, not so much. You have Grady Jarrett and Deion Jones, and besides that, you have Keanu Neal as well. I'm not sold on anyone on your defense besides those 3 players. Now, your offense, on the other hand, is amazing because you have Todd Gurley, you have Julio Jones, you have Matt Ryan, Calvin Ridley. You have so much on the offense, but very little on the defense. C tier. C tier is like you have one side, you're lopsided on one side or not that good. And D tier is just you're awful. Another team that's complete top to bottom is the Ravens. They have Lamar Jackson, Mark Ingram, Hollywood Brown. They have so much talent on offense. And on defense, they get just even better. They have Earl Thomas. They have Marlon Humphrey. And they have Marcus Peters, who are 2 amazing corners. You have a really good secondary in Baltimore. You have a great linebacking core, a good pass rush. They even added Calais Campbell this offseason to get even better. This Ravens team is a very, very, very strong team in the playoffs. And it's going to be a strong team to face in the playoffs. The Bears. Bears are a C tier roster, and I'm actually going to put them behind the Falcons. Falcons is probably top of C tier. Bears is a bad team. They have a great, great, great defense. They have nothing really in the secondary besides Eddie Jackson, I believe. And I don't know, they have Kyle Fuller. They have a corner, and they have. Actually, wait, no. Now that I'm thinking it, the Bears actually do have a decent secondary, and they have Khalil Mack. But besides that, actually. No, scratch that. I'm sorry. I'm blanking. No, they actually have a really good defense. They have no offense. They have no offense in Chicago, and it's mainly because of the quarterback of Mitchell Trubisky. If they're starting Nick Foles, it's still C tier, but it's a better C tier. Bengals. Defense is very iffy. You didn't really do much, I believe, in the offseason to fix that. You signed Von Bill. I believe that was your big acquisition. But the problem is, if AJ Green is playing, that's a B tier. Because you got T. Higgins, you got Tyler Boyd, you got Joe Burrow, you got AJ Green, you got Joe Mixon. Defense is the only part I'm not sold. You got William Jackson, but I don't know who your 2 safeties are. I'm going to say you guys are a C tier roster, but that's my opinion. I think if everyone can stay healthy and some players step up on defense, it could be a B tier, but right now it is a C tier. Cowboys. Cowboys are a B tier because they're missing secondary. They really don't have any secondary, and especially with them letting go of Byron Jones in the offseason, like letting him walk, their secondary tier got a little worse. They have a good linebacking core with Leighton Vander Esch, and they have a good linebacker with Jalen Smith. They have a good defensive line. They have a great offense with CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Amari Cooper, Ezekiel Elliott, Dak Prescott. That's a great offense. But that secondary, you're missing like a whole part of your secondary. And like I said, B tier is like you're good. Don't get me wrong. You're a good team. But you have a hole in your entire roster. A tier is like you have one player missing. Houston. I want to say Houston C tier. Like, I really kind of want to say Houston C tier because besides Deshaun Watson now, what do they have on offense? And what do they have on defense besides? They have a good defense. They're missing a whole side of the offense because they just traded DeAndre Hopkins. I want to say Houston's C tier. Colts are a B tier. They have really good players all around. They have Malik Hooker. They added DeForest Buckner in the offseason, which is a really big move for them. They added Phillip Rivers. They added They still have Marlon Mack. They have T.Y. Hilton. I think T.Y. Hilton's gonna have a really good year. I think this is gonna be a big thing. I don't know how they're gonna address the departure of Pierre Desir, but I think they're a B tier, kind of missing some secondary help. As you can see, a lot of teams don't have great secondaries, but the Rams are a C tier. Rams are a very defensive heavy team with very little offense, and when Todd Gurley was out last season, the Rams offense couldn't do anything. That defense has so much talent but can't really carry that team anymore. Chargers, they've re-bolstered that offense this entire offseason. That offense added David Bakari. They added Justin Herbert. They lost Melvin Gordon, but they still have Austin Eckler. They still have Keenan Allen. They still have Mike Williams. They still have Hunter Henry because they franchise tagged him. They added so much on that secondary. They added Chris Harris. So that alone is a huge addition. I think the Chargers are an A-tier team. They also have Derwin James, who is one of the best safeties in the league. The Chiefs, their defense is a little lackluster, but it's the Super Bowl champions. And due to the fact that they were in the Super Bowl and they won it, they have an S-tier roster. Because they literally did not lose anyone. And they added their franchise running back that they stink. The Saints. The Saints are an S-tier roster. They have secondary. They added Malcolm Jenkins. They have a running back. They have the top wide receiver in the league, if not a top 3 wide receiver in the league. Because you can make the argument Hopkins, Julio, and Michael Thomas. Those are the top 3. So whoever you want there is whatever. They have Drew Brees. They have Alvin Kamara. They have such a good team. They even added Emmanuel Sanders. But I don't trust this team in the playoffs. They can't get any further. They can't get past themselves. Giants. Giants are kind of bad. I mean, besides... no, they're seats. Giants are a C-tier roster. Actually, wait. I'm going back on this. I'm trying to think. Giants have Saquon. They have Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram. Defense. Yeah. Giants are a D-tier. Looking at their defense, especially if DeAndre Baker is going to get arrested for what it looks like to be those charges, that defense takes a hit. That's a D-tier roster. It's not that good. They got Daniel Jones some protection in the offensive line, but it was the wrong offensive tackle. I have him as the 3rd or 4th offensive lineman in the draft, but they took him 1. Eagles. They don't have wide receivers. That is their huge missing group. Their defense, hit or miss. Brandon Graham disappears. Fletcher Cox is always amazing. But secondary is a little off. They lost Malcolm Jenkins to the Saints. They added Jalen Ruger to the wide receiver core, but they really didn't add anyone. They really should have went after Robbie Anderson or someone like that in free agency, but they didn't. Steelers. I don't like James Conner. I don't like Juju as a number 1. They're missing a true number 1. They have a good defense. But I don't like Juju as a true number 1, and I do not like James Conner as a true number 1 back. After last season, he was injured. Steelers have a C-tier roster. Now, once again, this is saying what I think of their roster. This is not saying how they're going to perform this season, but this is their roster looking at it on paper. The Broncos got better. Broncos added Melvin Gordon. They added Jerry Jeudy. They added a lot to help Drew Lock out. But they lost Chris Harris. And they also... I think they lost somebody else on the defensive side. But I want to say they're a B roster. Packers, they're A. They have almost a complete roster. Their biggest need is a wide receiver. They do not have a wide receiver besides Devontae Adams. Everyone's saying, oh my god, this is going to be the year the Packers draft a wide receiver, and they didn't do it. They need to draft a wide receiver. Sorry. I'm sorry. Christian McCaffrey's good. I love Christian McCaffrey. I love DJ Moore. I like Teddy Bridgewater. They can't carry your team. The Panthers have a D roster. Christian McCaffrey alone cannot carry your team to make you a C tier. That is sorry. I'm sorry about that. The Raiders are a B team. They added so many good players to that team. They added Henry Ruggs. They added 2 middle linebackers to their team. They added Corey Littleton, and I'm forgetting who else. But they have a B tier roster. They have a really, really good roster. Washington, D. I don't know about Dwayne Haskins yet. Chase Young is a stud, or should be a stud. You have Terry McLaurin. You don't have your true number 1 running back. You don't have a middle linebacker that we trust. You have a lot of holes. Once again, you missing things. Hopefully it'll get better. Arizona. I'm very high on Arizona this year, and that's all depending on Kyler Murray. They have a great secondary. They have a good defense. They have good, really young, good quarterback. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Kyler Murray. They added DeAndre Hopkins, so Larry Fitzgerald, for the first time in his career, won't have to be the number 1 receiver. They have a good running back in Kenyon Drake. I like their roster. You could argue that they're like 1 player away from being like a really good team. Now, Buffalo. If you want to look at this, Buffalo is an A-tier roster. I'll put them in the bottom of A-tier. But they definitely have a better roster than the teams I put in B-tier, because you look at the Bills roster, it is basically complete from top to bottom. They just need that one big pass rusher, and that number 2 defense gets even better. They added Stephon Diggs, which was the biggest hole in that team. They added a true number 1 wide receiver. Their offensive line is decent. They have a good wide receiver core. They have a good young running back. They have great defense. I think the Bills are an A-tier lineup. No. Raiders go back down to B. Seattle. Seattle isn't the defense it used to be. They have Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright. That's it. They have a few pieces here and there, but they're not big game changers. Russell Wilson is carrying that team with very little help on offense. They can't get him a true number 1 wide receiver. They can't really do that much. Jets. I want to say the Jets, on the other hand, let's see right here. Jets, it's hard to determine the Jets. Like, they have pieces, but they don't have a true number 1. Their offensive line is still shoddy. Their defense is good. So I'll put him in the C tier. Mainly because you don't know how Darnold's going to play. You don't know how the number 1 wide receiver is going to play. You don't know how Le'Veon Bell's going to play under Adam Gase's offense. New England's a B tier because actually no. I'd say New England is an A tier team. They had the number 1 or number 2 defense. You can argue which one is which between the Bills and the Patriots. And they got a younger quarterback. They got Cam Newton. But the problem is they don't have a wide receiver. So actually, yeah, I'm gonna put them in like the second highest graded B tier team behind the Bucks. Actually, the secondary's lacking for the Bucks. Yeah, I'm going to say the Patriots are a B-tier roster. Their defense is amazing, but they don't have a wide receiver that could be a true number 1. Edelman shines in the slot. You don't know what you have with N'Keal Harry. You don't know what you have with anything else. And that was Tom's biggest problem. That's why he went to Tampa Bay. I've actually convinced myself I'm going to move Tampa Bay up to A. But you need to get wide receivers for Patriots to be an A or S tier team, and they don't. That's why Tom Brady left, and that's why they had to sign Cam Newton, and it's the same wide receivers. So that's going to be my tier list, guys. We have... Oh! No. This is the teams we have based on their rosters. Now, they're not really in order. I put the Patriots as a number 1 B team because that's how they are. But everything else can be interchangeable between S and A. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of this tier ranking. I know it's a little harsh on some teams, but you could argue I did a little biasy with the Bills, but if you do look, it is a complete roster. I actually even boasted up the Buccaneers to an A tier. But yeah, this is going to be my tier list for the NFL teams based off their roster. The next video I'm going to do with the same list, I'm going to do with their fan bases. And that's going to piss off some fans. But I'm fine with that. So let me know what you guys think about this. Once again, if you want to send me any tier lists, leave it down below. Or message me on Twitter because I have my DMs open at all times. And I love interacting with you guys. We are on the path to 500 subscribers. We are so close. Once we hit 500 subscribers, we are going to give away a copy of Madden 21 for free. For D-Man HD, I'm out.